So in this module we're going to look at anger. So let's start by looking at, well, what is anger? And anger is a reactive response inside of us in response to something that has usually happened outside of us. Maybe it was something that we did, or maybe it was something that somebody else did, or maybe it was something that happened. But we have a response of anger. So the first thing that we could say about anger is that it's a response to not getting what we want. Somehow we're disappointed and angry because we didn't get what we wanted or what we expected, and so we feel angry. The second thing that we could say about it is that it might relate to maybe not having our needs met. Maybe we were needing something and we didn't get what we actually needed as opposed to what we wanted, and that makes us feel angry. It can also relate to boundaries being crossed and being treated unfairly or unkindly or disrespectfully, and we will feel angry inside. Or it could be a pure survival issue, for example, driving in your car and somebody nearly cuts you off and you automatically respond with anger. That's an automatic response which is very connected with the fear response, and that is because anger is a protective emotion. So anger is very much to do with protection. Protection of our integrity, protection of our physical survival, protection of our emotional self. Our body is trying to protect us. We can also generate anger inside our body when we're not treating ourselves well. So it has nothing to do with anybody else, it's just how we're treating ourselves. So for example, if you're working too hard and pushing yourself too hard and driving yourself too hard and being too hard on yourself, then you may find that you start to feel impatient and intolerant and frustrated and angry. And these are clear signs that you're not looking after yourself enough. So anger is a very fascinating emotion, and when I first started learning about anger, I never used to see that actually my body could send me anger if I wasn't treating myself well. I used to think it was always to do with other people, and then I really discovered that one of the main reasons that we can feel angry and that our body will generate anger is if we're not treating ourselves well. And we could actually call that a form of self-abuse, because it is self-abuse. If we're not taking enough breaks, if we're working too hard, if we're being unkind to ourselves with our thoughts, there are many ways that we can abuse ourselves, then our body will get angry because it doesn't want us to treat ourselves this way. So we have to think of this when we're thinking about anger. It's about what's happening with other people, but it's also about what's happening with myself. So we could say that anger is both a healthy and an unhealthy reaction. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we're being treated unfairly by somebody else, we're being abused, mistreated, disrespected, whatever the unfair treatment is, then it's a very healthy response for our body to respond with anger. And that will very usually be a primary emotion, and then if we don't do something about the situation, then it will turn into secondary emotions as well. But it's a very healthy response. And if we didn't have that response, then we wouldn't know that there was something wrong. It's also a really healthy response for our body to send us anger if we're not treating ourselves well, because otherwise we also might not know that we're not treating ourselves well, and we'd keep going and we'd keep, abusing ourselves even more and more and working harder and harder and basically, driving ourselves into the ground. So this is why emotions are so intelligent. They have meaning and purpose, and they're trying to communicate with us. So we need to stop and ask ourselves, okay, if I'm feeling this way and my body is sending me anger, what is the message beneath the anger? What is my body trying to tell me? And you literally have to stop. You have to stop whatever it is that you're doing and ask yourself, okay, my body's sending me anger right now. what is the message and what is my body asking me to do? And then you decipher that message, and then you do whatever it is that your body is asking you to do. So if you're working too hard and not taking enough breaks, and you ask your body what it needs, then it might say, well, I need you to take a break. I need you to take a 10-minute break because I need a rest. I can't be slave-driven like this all the time. And so you take a break and your body relaxes and it stops sending the anger. And then you know that you've done the right thing, you've taken the right action. Or maybe if somebody is treating you badly, or you're being given too much work by your boss and your body is sending you frustration, then you ask yourself, well, what does my body need and want here? And you realize, well, I need to speak and act my truth with my boss and say that I need more time to do this project, or whatever it is that you need, right? You just need to do what you need to do to bring yourself back into balance and homeostasis. Because your body is infinitely intelligent, it never sends emotions by accident, and it's your job to interpret them and to do what your body needs. So these are what I call healthy reactions. Now we can have what I call unhealthy reactions or habits. So what do I mean by unhealthy anger reaction? Well, the problem with a lot of these emotions is that they can become a habit. They just become a knee-jerk habit. So for example, say, and this is one of my specialities, say you don't get what you want, you may feel angry. And what we have to do is to look deeper and ask ourselves, okay, so what is the pattern here? What is this pattern that I have created of getting angry when I don't get what I want? Now this is much deeper work that we're not covering in this course. This is covered more in the Patterns of Consciousness training. But I'm pointing it out here so that you can start to reflect on these deeper habits which also may need to be worked on. For example, you may have developed a habit of feeling frustrated when you don't get your needs met because as a child you didn't have your needs met, and that started to create a pattern of consciousness inside of you of feeling angry when your needs weren't met, and that just became an automatic knee-jerk response. So we're also going to have to identify and work on these automatic or very, very deep patterns to really truly clear these emotional patterns at a deeper level. But for the moment, you don't have to worry about that in this program. The purpose of this program is just to become aware of your feelings and learn how to self-process your feelings so that you feel better. And the last thing that I want to share about anger is how it's what I call a wrapper emotion. So what I mean by that is, if you imagine a lolly or a sweet, and you have the lolly inside the wrapper is the anger, it's the outer part, it's the protective part, because anger is this protective emotion. But there's something inside, there's something that it's protecting and covering. And what is that something? Well, it's almost always another emotion. And the types of emotions that we can be covering, or anger can be covering, are things like hurt and sadness and disappointment and upset, and also fear. That's why if we're afraid, we can often react angrily, because we're trying to protect ourselves, either emotionally or physically. But there will almost always be some other emotion underneath anger. And very often, unless you've looked at things in this way, you may be missing half the story, because you won't be identifying and noticing what are the emotions that are going along with this anger. So to give you a couple of examples, say somebody treats you unfairly and rudely, your body may respond with anger. But if you were to dig a little deeper, you might find that actually you felt hurt and upset. So it's up to you to really start to ask yourself, when I'm feeling angry, what is the emotion underneath? So let me give another example which relates to fear and anger. some time ago I checked into a hotel and my credit card was declined, and I asked if I could just check in because I knew that there was plenty of money on that card and I just needed to contact the bank and find out what had happened, but they said that they wouldn't let me do that. I responded with anger because I was annoyed that they wouldn't allow me to sort things out in a nice, easy way by sitting in the room, and they just said, no, you have to go and sit over there in the lobby and sort it out. And I felt really frustrated by that. So I was frustrated by the fact that I felt I hadn't been treated well, but also I was frustrated because of the situation, obviously, of the card being declined. And afterwards, I contemplated on why I'd actually felt so angry, and I realized that it had actually triggered a deep fear within me of, oh my goodness, if I can't check into this hotel, then I'm going to be on the streets tonight, or if I can't get my card to work, then I'm going to be on the streets tonight. So that's how anger can relate to fear. So really important to ask yourself, what are the emotions beneath the anger? There will always be something beneath the anger, and that can really help you to deal with the situation.